We're going to go on a fun journey through Langley City on the presentation here called Our City, Our Future. And I think I'll let Mr. Chung advance to our first topic of the evening as we go to housing. We know housing is the number one issue in British Columbia and in Langley City. If you talk to anybody, we know that we need more housing now, and more importantly, we need more affordable housing. So Langley City is definitely getting the job done when it comes to building more housing. We're the second fastest growing community in British Columbia. In 2023 alone, we've had 450 new units come online. We have 1,000 units under construction right now. We have 2,600 in the queue. That's like 10% growth just right there, and we've just got started. We've been very supportive of the provincial government and their efforts with transit-oriented areas, which are very aligned with our goals, building plexes. Plexes was a key part of our official community plan as well, and also being a partner in BC Builds, where we're going to start delivering workforce affordable housing for those professionals, nurses, people that are priced out of the market who should be able to own a home. So I'm really excited about that and the partnership with the province and also with the church community, because the church community has really been excellent partners in this. On the other side, we're trying to speed up what you as a property owner could do to get more housing built. So back in the mid 20th century, you could literally go on a catalog and order a house up. We want to do that again. We want to do it on a few different scales. So at the smallest scale, we want people to be able to basically pick a pre-approved design for a coach home or a lane home. So you can basically just get a pad laid, get a pre-approved home. It basically just gets a check at City Hall, easy peasy, you get it installed. On the other end, if you want to build a Plex home, we want to have that ready as well. So you can pick from a suite of designs, go to City Hall, get a check because it's already approved, get it built. We think that's going to actually deliver a lot of housing real quick, and something I'm really excited about. In 2021, we actually issued a new official community plan. That's our vision for our community, and it was aligned around SkyTrain. Now, the official community plan is a vision, but what it enables that is the zoning bylaw. So our current zoning bylaw was adopted, I think, in 1996, and I believe I was in grade 6 at the time. So it's pretty old. I'm 40 now, so I know I look younger. I'm 40 now, so it really does need to be updated, and I'm really excited to announce that through collaboration with both the business community and our residents, we've gathered that feedback, and council will be considering adopting a new modern zoning bylaw, which will give a lot more opportunity for business owners, entrepreneurs, and also just acknowledge the diversity of housing we could build in Langley City. So look forward to that in the fall. I'm pretty excited. Now, we can build a lot of housing and we can build a lot of market housing. That's very important. We have to make sure that people don't get left behind in the process. I want to acknowledge Langley City is an old community. We're over 100 years old. We have some of the first apartments in Metro Vancouver here, and they're showing their age. We want to make sure that, as these places redevelop, we acknowledge that some people will need to move, but they needed to be treated with dignity and respect and be given the right to move back to this community where they have their social network. Our council early on identified the need to beef up our tenant relocation policy. That's a priority for us, and coming in the next month will be an updated tenant relocation policy for council to consider that will have fair compensation over and above provincial requirements. Make sure that people have a tenant relocator to make sure they actually find a place, and extra supports for people that are senior or are below income. That's really important. And then the final piece is giving the people the opportunity to return at a below market rate. We've worked with the development sector as well to make sure that this is a policy that ensures that housing also gets built at the same time. So this is not about stopping redevelopment, but it's making sure that people are treated with respect and can come back. So that's something that I think is just the morally right thing that we have to do as a redeveloping and aging community. I talked about sort of some of the other things that we need to do. So there's this thing called land lift, but basically what it is with every project, there's a set of profit. So the developer gets a chunk of profit for sure, and we acknowledge that. And then there's a chunk left that can be used for municipalities. And there's a bit of a magic art to figuring that out. We want to set it in such a way that we can maximize our value so that we can return that to our residents and our businesses and make investments, but at the same time, make sure that we're making projects viable and that we're not artificially artificially increasing the cost of housing. Because again, we want to make sure we're building housing for people. So coming in the fall, we'll be having a suite of tools that we're going to be asking the development community to look at. We want to see 3-bedroom units. Those are tough to come by. We want to see below market housing built by the private sector. And we want to see childcare in apartments. So these are things that we're going to be asking the development community to do through this land lift or inclusionary zoning or density bonusing. There's a lot of words for it. It's all the same thing. And I think that's going to be really exciting. And, you know, I think at the end of the day, we're also going to need the strong support of the provincial and federal governments. They do have some good programs. I think they'll need to continue to beef those up because we'll probably get 10, 20% affordable units out of each new project. But, you know, to deliver the real affordability that we need, it's going to take the federal and provincial investments. We've seen the provincial government come to the table. I would assume they're going to come more to the table. I'm looking at Mr. Mercier right here. And I know the federal government also is looking at innovative ways to get more housing built. Now, we're going to build the housing. I've heard from a lot of people that we need the schools. I think the provincial government's also heard we need more schools, as has the school board. One of the things that I'm really proud of is our ability to partner with all these agencies to get things done. So, you know, through our school liaison committee, which I think is Councillor White and Councillor Wallace, they raised that with our school board. They agreed. We put together a little press release. We talked again to the provincial government, and I was really excited to see that they announced just last week 200 new spaces at Nickel School in one of our fastest growing neighborhoods. We know that Douglas Park Elementary is the next one. That's going to need more school space, and we'll be talking with the province and again, the school board. I just have to say the partnership we have with both those organizations is probably the best it's ever been, and I'm really proud of that relationship that we've developed over the last year. Now, the other thing that we need to do as a community is invest in our own infrastructure as well. So you probably know that Langley City has the best outdoor pool in Metro Vancouver. I know generations of Langley people have enjoyed it, and I'm sure if you've lived here, you've probably been in that pool. We have ice rinks, we have 2 rec centers, we have, I think, one of the best baseball diamonds in the region as well. We have a lot going on here, but we know we need to do more. So I'm really excited to say right now that we're putting together our Invest Langley City plan, and it's going to articulate what we need to build in the next 10 to 20 years to accommodate the growth that's coming. You know, things like a performing arts center. We know we need to expand our existing recreation facilities. We know we need a new indoor pool. These are things that we're aware of. We're going to put together a costed plan and a vision on how we get there. So I'm really excited about that because, you know, a great city like Langley City has wonderful amenities now, and we need to make sure that we're still leading when it comes to that. So be on the lookout for that as well. Now, you know, one of the things I think we all saw in the news recently was the water main burst in Calgary. And if you look at, you know, even 200th Street yesterday, there was a water main burst. Now, you know, there's been a lot of infrastructure installed before the 1950s and in the, you know, 60s through 80s. The old stuff was built really well, but it is like 120 years old now. We have wood stave pipe. It really does need to go. In the 1950s to 80s, I gotta say they didn't really build it very good, and it's all coming due. I mean, when I was first elected to council, I saw a very scary chart that said in the 2020s to 2030s, we basically need to replace everything. And what a lot of people don't know is that, you know, when you get new development, that's only paying for the new infrastructure. So if you're a city that's like Greenfield, it's kind of a bit of a Ponzi scheme. So you get, you know, the initial payout to build your infrastructure. Then you know, say, okay, well, we don't need to like raise taxes or anything like that, and we're just gonna sort of slide until that infrastructure's, you know, due for renewal in 50, 60, 100 years, depending on the kind of quality infrastructure you put in. A lot of municipalities in BC and throughout Canada are at this point where a lot of this greenfield, like our greenfield in Langley City ended in the 1990s, it's due. right? And I think, previous councils did acknowledge this and started saving money through the infrastructure levy that we've continued over the years. Again, there's more we need to do. And our current council is continuing on that because we know that we need to invest in the basics. If you look outside of this casino right now, I think, unfortunately, every road's probably dug up, but it's actually good because we're replacing this aging infrastructure, and that's something that I'm really proud of because it's super not sexy. If you go door knocking and say, hey, I replaced your sewer pipes, people are like, cool. But you know what? If your toilet doesn't flush, or unfortunately, if you're Calgary, it's important, right? And it's not sexy, but our council's committed to making sure we're investing in the basics because we never want to get to a situation like a Calgary. So we're going to continue our journey to community safety. So when you think about community safety, you probably think about like police and fire, bylaws. That's really important. But community safety is also about security. So there's all sorts of different kinds of security. There's food security. There's the security of your family or your friend life. There's financial security. There's the security of your health. There's the security of your job. These are all the things that actually are what make a community safe. And when you deal with the things I just talked about, you actually deal with some of the stuff you see on the street or the perceptions of crime. So, we've identified that as a city as a priority. That's why we hired a social planning department who's been doing a lot of work on really starting to tackle the upscale or the upstream issues that lead to some of the, poverty and the crime that comes out of poverty in our community. Now, we aren't forgetting the basics when it comes to fire and police and bylaws. So in the last 2 years, we've set aside funding for 5 new firefighters. We've set aside funding and hired 3 new RCMP officers, a new bylaw officer, and a new emergency management officer. So we're continuing to invest in those things. But I want to get back to the upstream side of things. So one of the things that, again, I'm really proud of is our partnership, again, with the school district and the Board of Education. We received funding from the federal government. It was the guns and gangs funding. And, when you look at Langley City, we don't actually have, guns and gangs, but we were happy to take the money. And we invested that in the school district to really help kids that could be on the edge of maybe getting into a life that was negative. And the school already had an excellent program, so we just augmented that with our funding. And while it might not be something that I can say and point at today, I know that in 10 years from now, we've made our community safer because we've invested in our children. There's other things that we're working on, like food programs as well, how we can make sure that people have access to that. I mean, the community gardens, that's something where you're giving people, food security through our park system. And I know that there's seniors and newcomers in our community, like our Douglas Park Community Gardens full of seniors. They're growing fruit and vegetables there. We have folks that came from Syria growing food in our Rotary Centennial Park. And interestingly, they've created a community there that turned Rotary Centennial Park, which, I'll be frank, was historically known as being a place you probably didn't want to walk in. If you go there right now, there's kids playing soccer, baseball's there, and then people are gardening and really creating a community. And that's how you create safety. Police are important, they absolutely are, but the safety comes from building strong communities and networks and making sure you can lift people out of poverty. And that's the work that we're going to continue to do in Langley City. Now, I do need to talk about deintegration. I know that's something we all are excited about, but I'll just say 2 things. One of them, Langley City is responsible for about 1/3 of the crime in Langley City and Township. And we acknowledge that. However you slice and dice it, we pay for about 1/3 of the police, 1/3 of their times here, 1/3 of the files. Deintegration is something that requires the provincial government to approve. The provincial government needs to see that community safety is not compromised not only in Langley City, Township, but also all of BC. There was a report that the RCMP issued that said it would create public safety challenges and create safety challenges for RCMP members. So that was the initial report, and there's a lot of work to do. Given the experience of Surrey, I think the province is going to be taking a really close look at how this will impact the community. And I know it's been said by some that deintegration is a done deal. Well, I gotta say, Brenda Locke thought the Surrey RCMP was a done deal. I don't think that worked out very well for her. So we're gonna continue on our journey and talk about SkyTrain, because I'm really excited about SkyTrain, but I'm actually not gonna talk about SkyTrain. I'm gonna talk around SkyTrain. So SkyTrain is going to be transformative to our community, but there's things we need to do to support SkyTrain to really maximize its value. The first thing is BRT. Now, I'm really excited about BRT because, well, SkyTrain will provide a good east-west connector. We know a lot of people go north-south, all the way from Campbell Heights Industrial Area up to Maple Ridge. I was really excited that the Mayor's Council prioritized Langley's BRT. That's very, very, very good, and it's going to provide new opportunity for people to access businesses, shops, and their home. We believe that the 203rd Street terminus is the perfect place for BRT to end. There's a couple reasons why. One of them, as a transit rider myself, it's just way easier to be connected with all of the buses in one transit exchange instead of having two. But the second is it's right next to KPU, which is a world-leading university, and buses and universities go hand in hand, right? It's like, I guess, lavender flavoring in a Starbucks latte these days. They just complement each other. So I'm excited about seeing that getting built in Langley City. And BRT is something that you might not have thought about industrial areas wanting, but I think Campbell Heights really changed the dynamics on BRT and high-frequency buses to industrial areas make a lot of sense. I actually sat down with the owners of Bimbo Bread, so that's the bakery just by the 204th Street overpass. They said in order to attract workers, they need buses because right now people have to go over to the Langley bypass. It's very dangerous. So they're looking to see us invest in transit because otherwise they can't get workers to their facility. So that's something I look forward to continuing to advocate with the other mayors in Metro Vancouver to make sure we get the funding to build out bus service. So SkyTrain, our city is 10 square kilometers. Our population is growing. We are not building more roads. We can't afford to do that. We'd have to tear down everybody's homes and businesses, and that's nothing I'm interested in doing. So people need to be able to have easy, safe ways and fast ways to walk, ride their bikes, and get on a bus. So our transportation plan is really about connecting people to our downtown, the schools, their homes, and the SkyTrain stations. And we're doing that by investing in walking and cycling and putting in bus lanes. We're going to have our new Transport 2045 plan come forward probably for adoption this fall. We've had a lot of good consultation with the business community and also with our residents as well. So I'm really excited about that work as well. And I should say it also makes sure that we are protecting the environment because people will be able to walk and drive less, hopefully, take transit and bike. So I get to see everybody cycling right by the mayor's office because we got bike lanes there now. And it's just really cool because I see young kids coming home from school. I saw just today an older lady with her groceries down in the bike lanes, people skateboarding because there's a skate shop right there by City Hall. So yeah, it just brings a whole new vibrancy to our downtown. So let's continue on our journey to development. And I know we kind of talked about development with housing, but I want to talk about some of the other work we're doing on that. So we know that time is money in the development side of things, and sometimes the permitting process can be slow. And a lot of the reasons why is it's a paper process. And even if it's not paper, it's like PDFs and USB keys and files and stuff can get lost. I've seen it so much. Again, the provincial government has been a great partner. They've worked, and I think it came out of Kelowna, actually, an e-permitting system. So we're one of the pilot communities for e-permitting, and we're going to be rolling that out. There's a couple benefits. One, it's a lot faster. Your documents won't get lost, and you know exactly the status of your application in real time. It'll make sure you know what's going on, and it'll also hold us as a city accountable to make sure that we're delivering within our objectives. So I look forward to seeing that being rolled out. I am really, really proud of KPU. It's an amazing school, and they have some amazing programs at the Langley City campus. And you might laugh if I say, I want to talk about Silicon Valley, but I do want to talk about Silicon Valley because we have that level of opportunity in Langley City. So I don't know if you've heard about the flywheel effect, but this is something I've heard from executives and businesses talk about. In a normal situation, you have 1 + 1 and it equals 2. The flywheel is 1 + 1 = 6. And so how you do that is by leveraging the private sector and the public sector working together to make great things happen. So what we want to do with KPU, and actually maybe I'll go back to Silicon Valley. So why Silicon Valley was successful is the federal government of the United States invested in the universities, which invested in the researchers, which then decided to leave the universities, establish businesses because it was easy to do so in Silicon Valley, and that's how it happens. So in Langley City, we want to do the same thing. We have the school. They have some great ag tech programs, a great brewing program. We have industrial lands that have outmoded zoning, and again, some red tape that we acknowledge that we need to change. So we have the skills right there. We have the land that we can update to make sure that it has super flexible zoning to enable whatever innovation comes. I've talked about how we're working on quicker permitting processes. So we want to see the day when someone can come as a researcher out of KPU and say, I want to start a business, be able to get some equity from the private sector, go to City Hall, maybe it's a month, find a space and get going. That's actually really possible, and it's something that's a true innovation boulevard and something that we can do. That work is exciting and ongoing right now. KPU's been an amazing partner in this process, and we'll see if we can get the province and the feds involved as well. On development, we're also working on an overall economic development strategy for a community. I think what we're doing a little bit different is adding the social element to it as well, understanding that for communities to succeed and for businesses to succeed, everybody in your community needs to succeed. Early results have shown that there's a couple things that we need to work on. One of them is to focus on our amenities, continue the enhancement in our downtown. We have the Fraser Highway one-way project. That's about a $20 million investment that's going to be launching in around August this year. And then, continuing to make sure we have housing choice and affordability so that people that do want to come here and innovate actually can, find a place to live. So we're going to continue on our walk, and we're going to move over to the Citizens Assembly. So, the best decisions are the decisions that are made from your community and with your community. And traditionally, decisions have been made by people that are of a select kind of group. And when you only have a certain select group of people making decisions, you kind of get bad decisions. I love our council, but sometimes when you spend a lot of time together, you start to think the same, and then you sort of need to challenge yourself to think a little bit different sometimes. The Citizens Assembly brings a cross-section of your community that's representative together, and because you have these different cross-sections, you get to better decision-making and outcomes. There's a lot of work that goes into actually launching a Citizens Assembly where they make decisions, and we've been doing that groundwork over the last year. So we've had probably a dozen or so workshops, dinners, pop-up events, really asking people like, what's your concern around safety? What's your concern around the economy, poverty? And we've just been reaching out, gathering all this information. Now, we're working on it right now to distill this information, that's going to say these are the challenges, these are some potential solutions. We'll be selecting Citizens Assembly people, hopefully, this spring, and we'll be convening this spring. They're going to be looking at the learnings that we've discovered through our social planning department over the last year. They're going to be picking the priorities from everything we've heard, because we've heard a lot. And they're going to say, we think you need to move on these 10 items, and this is how we think you should do it. They're going to present that to council. We're going to deliberate and figure out what we want to pick from there and move forward. And I think, we hear a lot about, people don't get involved in government. They don't trust us. It's not exciting, but I think if you actually go to people quite intentionally with what we're doing today, you're going to actually help, not only get this better decision making, but preserve democracy. Because quite frankly, democracy is in trouble right now. And so I'm happy that we're directly engaging with our citizens in a way that I don't think has really been done anywhere else in Metro Vancouver. So I think we're in the final part of our journey, and we're going to be talking about the very exciting performance evaluation and reporting framework. So if you're in business, you know that you need to measure what matters, and you can't change what you don't know. In government, I'll take our lumps. We haven't really done a good job of measurement and presenting that information for ourselves as a council and for our community to see. And this is not just Langley City, this is just kind of government in general, but there's been a lot of work within the public sector on bringing KPIs, bringing things that are important up to the forefront so it can make changes. One thing that stuck with me was a presentation council had with a consultant, and the slide was measure what matters. And we're going to measure what matters in Langley City, and we're going to make that publicly available. So measuring what matters is important for a couple of reasons. One of them is that it allows us to make course corrections. So if we think, for example, affordable housing is important, and that we believe that 25% needs to be 3-bedroom units. Well, now we can actually start tracking that and reporting on it. We can try policies as a council and a staff, and then we can look at it in real time to say, are we actually meeting that? And if not, try a new policy. If we are, double down in what we're doing. Or, something that's maybe a little less sexy, we're measuring, water exfiltration rates in neighborhoods. That's really, really important, by the way, for your utility bills. But we want to measure that, and then we can say in real time, oh, we've noticed this neighborhood seems to have a water loss. Maybe there's a water main break that we don't really know about that's about to start, and we can get it before it becomes an issue. So using this data is actually very, very important because it'll allow us to not only make better decisions, but probably save money in the process. That water main example, it's a lot more cost effective to replace something before it breaks than once it's broken. So I'm really excited. And I'm going to give you a little bit of some of the metrics that we're thinking about right now. So on the housing, we're going to be looking at sort of the housing availability because we know that's a challenge in our community. We're going to be looking at the affordability metrics across different housing types and the quantity that we're seeing. And we'll be reporting that probably in the next few months. And Francis would know more, but we will be having a dashboard that we can present, hopefully, with the state of the city next year on how we've gone. For newcomers, we want to track the immigration patterns, the success of people integrating into our community. Have they found jobs? Have they been attached to primary care? That's really, really important as well. For development, we're going to be monitoring building permits, land use, and other economic indicators. So that's a little taste of some of the dashboards that we're going to be working on in metrics and KPIs. So I've gone through a whole heck of a lot, and I look forward to talking to Corey more in sort of the fireside chat. But you know what? We are a big city, and I hope we continue to maintain our small town vibe. And I can't get away from a presentation without saying that we are the place to be. So thank you very much.
I think I'll jump into kind of brass tacks a little bit. I guess brass tacks and tax. We're doing a survey right now of our membership, and not surprising, the number one issue coming back is cost for business. The Canadian Chamber just did their 15,000 business survey. Number one issue is cost of business. So with lingering inflation, still elevated interest rates, increasing taxes to businesses, obviously that's what I hear from our members. Can you speak to what the city's role is in managing the cost it places on businesses? Obviously you have control over the property tax piece, and that's can be a big line item for our businesses, especially small businesses, but even larger employers. So can you speak to kind of what's the city's role, what's your philosophy on how you should be managing the cost that you're putting onto businesses?
So really when you look at it, city is a utility, right? What we do is provide an essential service for business, and that costs money to provide. I'm just going to be quite frank with you. And, the investments you make gets the quality of service you want, right? So there's a lot of, again, Calgary as an example, but there's a lot of other water and sewer utilities, which is a huge chunk of expenses that haven't invested, and now they're seeing catastrophic failures, water boil advisories, things like that. So, it's really easy to say, we're going to keep taxes low, and you do that by not investing in your infrastructure, and then you punt it down the road, and it becomes a future person's problem. But I think we're at this point in time now where we're at the future, so you can't punt it down the road anymore. So, for me, I've never been afraid to say that we're going to continue to invest in the infrastructure we need, because for businesses to succeed, you do need those basic pieces of infrastructure. I was elected in 2017, and I actually pulled a report on beyond the sort of like status quo sort of stuff that you just need to do collective agreements, and the like. We basically have invested in parks maintenance and we look at the service level increments, improving our park maintenance, hiring, I think, 2 additional bylaw officers above what I talked about today, 3 additional firefighters, rec service programming, and some money to address some of the homelessness challenges in our community. So it's been really laser focused on delivering really important services in our community. And it's something, again, that I believe in. If we want to attract people to Langley City, if we want to attract the kind of folks that are going to be the innovators, we need to have great amenities. And we heard that clearly from our reports. So if we want to have a thriving economy and raise all boats, we need to have the amenities that are going to attract people here in the first place. And we need to maintain our existing amenities so that we don't have a water main burst on Fraser Highway and then your business is shut, or you can't have the Calgary Stampede.
Yeah, and we've talked about this infrastructure deficit that municipalities across the country are facing, and that there is no way for municipalities to fund that. So is without senior levels of government support on that. But so last year was 11.56, this year was 9.97. We've chatted offline about that number means very differently depending on what your business is and what the assessment is. So are you saying kind of that's we should be getting used to these types of increases? Is that kind of what we're going to be having to do as an investment for the city?
I mean, you have, again, 2 choices as a politician. The easy one is, I'm going to keep your taxes low, and then you make it somebody else's problem 4 years down the road. Or you do the tough decision, which is, again, like, we know that there's limits, but I don't want to be leaving a problem for tomorrow. Our mission statement for Langley City is we're creating decisions and choices not only for today, but for the future. Now, I actually do want to look at taxes for a bit because we have a slide here. And it's kind of really interesting because, I get some folks that come to me and they're like, my goodness, my taxes went up 30%. And I'm like, that's crazy. But a lot of it has to do with the BC Assessment Authority and how things work. So if you look at the purple, those are locations where the assessed value has gone up. When you look at the red, those are the areas where the assessed value has actually just gone through the roof. And that's actually really kind of surprising, and it makes no sense to me. So how can Relocation, which is the purple, the purple at 200th Street and the Langley bypass on I guess that would be the northeast, see its value go down? Well, Willow Park, which is the red, where the Safeway and the King Taps is going, see a 20% increase. I don't understand the rhyme and reason, and I think that's where work needs to be happening with the BC Assessment Authority. So as an example, if you were looking at the property tax for the casino here, because I have the list of all the taxes here for areas, actually, do I have them here? I will go with the Willowbrook Mall. So the Willowbrook Mall actually had a minus 1.8% tax decrease. So their taxes went down $9,000 between this year and last year. If we look at that Relocation, which is the thing I highlighted there in the purple, their taxes actually went down in total $50,000 a year. Now, if we go to Willow Park, which is the red, their taxes went up $98,000. So we saw a shift of anywhere from a decrease of 2.8% in their property tax to an increase of 22.2%. And this is nothing the city does, right? We set our tax rate, and it's about 9% this year, and this is what comes out on the other side.
Well, I think that, BC assessment's been the perversion that creates and highest and best use has that challenge. So is that something that the city can tackle? Is that something that you can? That's
outside of our control because the BC Assessment Authority was set to be an independent, arm's-length agency that is free from political interference. Yeah.
So I suppose we could have those conversations with the province, who I guess would fall under their remit. And I suppose, moving on, but I guess all that is within your remit then is if we can see this kind of wild swings, I guess that makes it all the more relevant to make sure that every 0.% that we are increasing, we're being very cognizant of it, because it actually might not be 9.97. For some of them, it might be 28. So I think
Absolutely.
even more reason to keep laser focused on costs.
Yeah, in making sure we're delivering on the basics and public safety for sure.
No. The video, I noticed the video kind of really leaned into public safety. That was like the first 4 or 5 people spoke on public safety. Why is that? Why is that? Why is that the first thing that you kind of led with in the video?
Yeah, I think Langley City has traditionally had a reputation, and a lot of it unwarranted, as being, unsafe. If you talk to our OIC, he tells me all the time, Nathan, your place is not unsafe at all. And, we've really seen a transformation because we've been investing in our parks and we've been investing in some of the social sides of things. And if you go right now after this and go to Douglas Park, you'll probably see some people doing like karate, some people reading a book, people taking walks. And it's because of those investments in those spaces and people using them that it delivers that safety. And I think, I wanted to ensure that the folks here, and there's some folks that aren't from Langley City here, to understand that transformation and maybe invite them to check out our parks and our downtown. And there's a reason why we're getting new businesses locating here as well, because of that.
Pardon me. And I'm going to pick it up because you mentioned it during your presentation there, and you think you kind of talked about it blends into this idea of you mentioned the upstream causes of crime. Is that getting a lot of scope? Is that what the city should be? If you're talking about getting back to basics, is that what the city should be worrying about? Isn't that someone else's, other levels of government's concern? Do we have the luxury of getting involved in upstream causes of poverty and homelessness?
So I think the traditional response was it's not local government's responsibility to do anything about that. And here we are today. And when I talk to people, when I talk to business owners, what they say is, Nathan, I don't give a flying banana about what level of government it is. I want you, because I voted for you, I voted for the council to deal with it. And we've heard that. And so while we don't have the money or the resources to actually get the thing done, we definitely have the ability to convene people together to make sure people are aligned. And that's the work we're doing, is driving alignment. And that's so important. And as a business owner, alignment is critical.
And so you picked up on the idea of bringing people together. So I'm going to jump into that, your citizens' assembly. The audience here is kind of uniquely not citizens in many cases. What are you going to do to make sure that citizen assembly isn't concerned only about what's happening at Susan's front door, but at my business's front door?
Yeah, and I think I touched on it in our presentation that Dina Kay and the work that she's been doing, she's our social planner, along with others, have been canvassing the business community in Langley. We have our socioeconomic plan going on as well. We have people from the business community engaged in those early conversations. So we've definitely and intentionally reached out to businesses across different sectors. So whether it's a small retailer on the Fraser Highway one-way, whether it's a major car dealer, or one of the institutional landholders, we've made sure we've got a good cross-section.
And do you think we miss the point when we focus on a word like safety? Because you said we don't have guns and gangs, and I think that's some of the challenges we've seen at the federal level. They kind of bail reform was focused on guns and gangs. That's not what I hear from my members. It's the fact that someone smashed their window in, or someone cut the wires for their air conditioner and stole their thing out of their truck. So if we're focusing on safety, that's one piece. Or what is the city doing on this kind of low-level grinding street crime, which isn't, as I said, a safety piece, but it's I'm showing up to my business in the morning and the store's been busted open.
Yeah, and isn't that poverty acting out in real time? That's what it is, and that's why we talked about the upstream side of things. And one of the things that I think a lot of us on council observed is there's a lot of great work happening, and there's a lot of organizations doing good work as well. And again, it's the alignment that isn't there right now. And so that's the work that we've been doing over the last year. There's going to be a part of the socioeconomic plan and economic plan, and we're actually trying to make these plans into one sort of comprehensive, understandable thing, because if you have too many plans, you can't really execute on anything. But the point being is we're going to drive alignment. As a city, that's something we've decided we need to do to make sure that federal partners, provincial partners, school district, business community, nonprofits, and ourselves are actually tackling what needs to happen. So if we see an indicator, that says, a child doesn't have access to food, and so then they're not paying attention in school and they get kicked out and now they're up to no good, or, someone needs access to detox facilities, they don't have it, they're roaming around downtown Langley. These are things that we're going to be able to pull out. There's actually a really cool program called Coordinated Access, which is just launched. So again, this is about making sure that we change, and it's not the city, though we are spearheading it in our community with the partners, but actually looks at the individuals and can flag, hey, this person needs support, can we go and help them so they don't get lost in the system? Yeah. That's how we deal with these low-level issues, is we do have to tackle the root causes. I mean, we have the highest police to resident ratio in Metro Vancouver. The second it changes, if we could, fully just police our way to a safe and secure community, we would have been there 30 years ago. So we know we need to do things different, and we are.
Speaking of, you mentioned the policing. You brought up deintegration in your presentation. Has the city, I guess, from the business perspective, again, not to always bring it back to kind of what it's going to mean for our members, but at the end of the day, as long as I phone 911 and someone shows up, that's my main concern. But has the city costed out? You mentioned that you're not sure it might happen or might not, but has the city costed out if it goes ahead? Can we afford this?
Oh, absolutely. We can do it. It's we're a town of 33,000 that are adding another 10,000 people to it. We're one of the largest municipalities in BC. So if we need to, we can do that. My point is it creates safety problems because we have a downtown core that's shared across 2 municipalities. So that's a big problem there. And quite frankly, we have a system of federation in Metro Vancouver, and generally how it works is we try to coordinate because it just makes a ton of sense. So there's a reason why we have one transit agency. We are 21 municipalities, and I'm proud that there are 21 independent municipalities with people that represent their own community. That's really, really great because local government knows what's best for their own community and is able to respond really quick. But we know that there's levels of efficiency that make sense. It's the reason we have Metro Vancouver for water and sewer services as well. It's the reason we have e-com for 911 and a shared radio network. There's areas where it makes sense to be integrated. In my mind, policing is just that. That's why we have IHIT, the ERT, Emergency Response Team, DOG Team, Forensic Team. Those are all integrated with even the independent police departments in Metro Vancouver.
Do you think, is this a conversation we need to be having as a community if we have to go ahead and build a new detachment or have to build this? Are those bills that we should be looking for help? There's a big neighboring community that's getting a whole bunch of money to help something that they started the ball rolling on. Is that something that is that a conversation you're willing to have, to say, I don't want our members having to foot that bill? Can the province come to the table?
At the end of the day, it's the provincial government that makes decisions on policing. So it'll be up to them to see the business case and make a call on that. If we do need to, we can, again, get it done. The provincial government, and I don't think this has been a thing that's come up from time to time. There was a dispute with Esquimalt and Victoria, and I think they were able to work it out, and that was under BC United government. But at the end of the day, if it happens, it's not going to be, you don't have police anymore. They need to maintain adequate and effective policing, and they need to make sure that both partners have a plan on how you can get there.
Yeah. I'm going to take a question from the Slido here, and it kind of ties into this idea of transportation infrastructure. And you mentioned SkyTrain, rapid transit's coming, BRT is very exciting. That's going to be coming as well. And then I appreciate your comments on servicing industrial spaces. I think that's also always a philosophical challenge we have with transit in our region is everyone gets very excited for this finer grained transit where, Susan can go to the drugstore and get on the bus, whereas I've got 500 employees that can't get to work. So what's the priority on that? As a business community, what do you say to our audience around this mix of bike lanes and getting people on transit and moving things by walking and other modes when I've got plumbers and roofers and business people who don't have that option and they have to use their cars and don't want to feel left behind or missing in the plans?
Yeah, I think it's a straw man argument, actually. So I invite you to take the bus in the morning and count all the tradespeople on transit. and you will see that tradespeople do take transit. That's just a straw man argument, so I just need to address that right there. It's a real thing. But as more people, and you see this everywhere, as more people have more transportation options and people will choose what's convenient, you do free up space for commercial goods movement, and that is key. And there's also cool things you can do, like have deliveries at different types of the day, so you're not doing a delivery at 4 p.m. So if you go to like Stevens, which is a great new business, their delivery happens at about 6:30 because that's when I'm running down Fraser Highway and when I see them actually doing the delivery. So there's ways you can also maximize the existing resources that you have to make sure that you're not like building for Christmas, basically, which is a waste of money. And you tell me we need to save money. How you save money is don't spend money on a bunch of expensive roads when you don't need to.
Okay, we'll take that. SkyTrain's coming. You wanted to talk around SkyTrain, so let's talk around SkyTrain.
We can talk about SkyTrain
no,
too.
No, SkyTrain, but and we'll have SkyTrain come out and give us an update at some point. What's the city going to do to work with TI Corp, who's the builders, or the one over, to make sure and with our business community, make sure we have clear eyes on construction timelines, road closures, other impacts. What's the city's role in making sure that we're mitigating that? We've seen these major infrastructure projects go sideways in other communities, and that's the last thing I want to see for our members. So what's obviously you're not building it, but what's your role in making sure that if a road's being closed, we know about it, we were communicating about it, and we're mitigating those impacts?
Yeah, I mean, we are the advocates for our community, and to me that includes the business community. On our council, we have Councillor Delaney Mack. She owns a small business, right? So that's awesome. We have Councillor Terry James. She's in charge of the Downtown Langley Business Association, and I really trust their voice when it comes to business matters, and I know if there's a concern, they're going to be the first people that are going to talk to us as a council and say, hey, we need to advocate, get on the phone with TI and make sure we get this sorted out. If I hear about a concern with the business, because we're 10 square kilometers and 33,000 people, I can personally respond to that just because we're such a small municipality. So you have my guarantee that if there's a problem and it can't be worked out between TI and they need advocacy from the city, I'm going to be there as quick as possible. I know our council will be there as quick as possible, and our staff will make sure that there's good communication going on because it's so, so important.
Yeah, and I guess we can echo that for the one-way project. Obviously, that is within your remit. I know that's going to tender, I think,
it's already
in tender yesterday, I think, right? Yeah.
Now, yeah.
Yeah, and so we'll probably that'll start moving pretty quickly, I would imagine. And again, like we've got some one-way merchants here, and we have lots of businesses. I mean, in and around that as well, who might shop there or might have clients there. I think if I can leave you with a message, I mean, we need to over communicate.
Absolutely.
We can't rely on, and the chamber could be an advocate and a partner in that, because I think businesses are fine if we know what's going to happen and we know a timeline and we can plan for it. We can plan for it, but when we get on Friday, something's happening next Tuesday, that's not good enough.
Yeah, no, communication's going to be so key. I mean, my hometown of Vernon, BC did a similar project a while back now, because that's when I lived there, where they started doing a conversion of their downtown from a 4-lane road to a 2-lane road with some more parking. And that required a lot of communication and collaboration. At the end of the day, it was great for the downtown. It did suck during the construction phases, and I'm really aware and sensitive to the needs of retailers. So there's a thing, during Christmas, we've made a conscious decision that we are not doing construction during the Christmas season. I know for many retailers that's like the make it or break it season, and we don't want to be responsible for ruining the success of a retail business in our downtown. Council believes that it's really the gem and something very, very unique in Metro Vancouver that we want to preserve. So, we will be communicating, we will be going above and beyond, and you have my commitment to make sure that to the extent possible that we mitigate what we can. Because it's such an important part, and it's the heart of our community. It really is.
Yeah, and I think and this is nowhere on the scale of this, but one of the lessons that I think everyone realized when last time businesses got shut down in 2020, we weren't taught. It wasn't when the pandemic. It wasn't months later that businesses were having a hard time. They couldn't make rent the next 2 weeks later.
Correct.
They couldn't make payroll that Friday. It does not take very long if a business loses income before they start to have trouble. So we have to make sure we're laser focused on those pieces.
Absolutely.
I realize the time here, so there's a couple of questions here that touch on the Slido around housing and the provincial bills. Can you speak to on the provincial stuff around density around transit space stations and multiplexes on everything. What's Langley going to look like? How does that jive with your official community plan? Does it not? And what is our communities going to look like when and if these policies start to actually hit the road?
Yeah, so I mean, when we saw the provincial housing stuff, it was like, did they copy our OCP? I'm not quite sure. But for us, we actually identified in our official community plan the transit-oriented areas anyways. So the real difference is that we don't have minimum parking requirements anymore for residential. So that's the only real change. Now we know, because minimum parking requirements are something that's been eliminated in a lot of places in North America. If you're building a place, you know you need to build parking. And ironically, some communities have actually seen an increase in parking spaces when municipalities have removed minimum parking requirements. So, you know, you're not going to be able to sell a condo or a townhouse without parking, right? So that's one thing. For the small scale units, the fourplexes, we were looking at 3 units already in most of our communities. So this is 4. It's not that big of a deal, really. So yeah, I mean, it's not really that big of a deal for Langley City.
But then, how does that? I mean, you mentioned density bonusing, and it's interesting to kind of see you exploring that space. Does this kind of blow that up if it's already if you're between the OCP and the province? If we're already done, you can do this.
No.
How do you leverage?
So
that
you know,
for
for
density
example, in an area where we allow 6 to 8 stories. The provincial minimum, I think, at 800 meters, I could be wrong, is like a FAR of 3. So we can say, hey, you can do a FAR of 3.5. That's still within the 6 to 8 stories and what's in our OCP as well, but give an opportunity there. The provincial government's also introduced inclusionary zoning policies as well that can be applied within the TOE areas, even if you're not going at a higher density. So I think they recognize that that was a gap and they've already fixed that. When it comes to the small scale units, they're still subject to, you know, DCCs, CACs, off-site servicing. So it's not like, you know, someone can just plop a unit there and if there isn't the road capacity or water or sewer, they can get it done. Like they still have to do what any other project, including a single family home, would have to do. We do have to update our modeling, and that's something that we're doing anyhow. So again, it's not really that big of a deal.
Okay, we'll have to wrap up here pretty quick because I know everyone needs to get themselves home here. Last time you came and spoke to us, it was what, 8 months in, 6 months in. We're 20 months in now. You want to, as our closing comment, do you want to kind of wrap up and kind of what? How is that 20 months? How has that time been? Where are we in achieving the goals that you think that you want to be at? And what's the next big thing that we should look out for as a business community?
Yeah. So I mean, the stuff that I'm most proud of is probably the stuff you don't see. So one of the things that I committed to doing when I ran for mayor was to work together to the extent possible. So that included, you know, with our council, and we all came from different walks of life and different places. And the first thing we all together committed to doing, which was really amazing, and I give credit to our whole council for that, is that we will, you know, work honestly with each other. It doesn't mean that we need to like agree, and we don't. You know, we have, you know, split votes, which is great and healthy for democracy, but we respect each other. The other thing that we did, which I'm really proud of, is we have a strategic plan right now that was developed by council. That's a rolling plan to be dynamic to the emerging challenges in our community. Again, that's not like sexy. You can't put a sign that says strategic plan, but you know, it's really driven clear alignment from council to staff. And so that's given staff the ability to execute because they know that there's alignment from council on what they need to do. The other thing, like I've talked about, is investing in the basics. I'm really proud of that. Now, looking forward to the future for the business community, we have the new Innovation Boulevard stuff coming down the pipe. Obviously, SkyTrain, Fraser Highway One-Way. We know we need to invest in amenities. We'll have the Invest Langley City plan coming forward in the next year. Lots and lots of housing, and if you're a retailer, you know that housing means people. We're a walkable community. That's the number one thing we hear why people love Langley City is that it's walkable. So you're going to get a lot more customers going down the street, and it's up to you to convert those into people that will buy your thing. So we can deliver the people to your door, and we are, and then it's up to you to convert those into paying customers.
All right. We're up to that challenge, I think.
Awesome.
So, Mayor Pachal, thanks so much for coming and taking the time. I appreciate you joining us today. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
I know we had a call on Friday, and I know I told you we weren't going to get to all the questions on Slido, so I said I would share them with you because there's a few good questions on here around seniors and accessibility, which I didn't get to. That's not because the Chamber doesn't think those are important, but just obviously trying to tackle what we can in the limited time. So I'll share those with your office in case there's any information you want to share. I'm sure cities.
Yeah, and we can get that back to you.
Yeah.
So if there's any questions, you can submit them to the office.
Yeah.
You have my promise. We'll get answers and get them back to you so you
Awesome.
can distribute it out.
Beautiful. Appreciate that. Thanks so
Awesome.
much.